All right, yesterday was the big release date for Jake Tapper's book, where he sort of covers up the cover up and gives an excuse to the media and to Democrats about what they knew and when they knew it about Joe Biden's incapacity to be president. We've been covering this story quite a bit. You know how I feel about Jake Tapper. You know how I feel about this book. That said, there's still quite a bit of value in what's going on in the media right now, and specifically Jake Tapper's Dog and Pony show for his book launch. The way he is able to humiliate and debase himself just to sell this book is absolutely delicious. And it was so desperate for Jake Tapper. He was so desperate to make a coin on this story that he walked into the lion's den. His friend, they are apparently friends, Megyn Kelly, held absolutely nothing back. You should watch this entire podcast on the platform that you're sitting on right now. We share the platform, whatever she's on, I'm on too. Go where she is, find this show, watch the whole thing. We've curated some highlights for you. Okay, pay close attention to Jake in the middle with the deer in the headlights look, without the smart guy glasses, take note, and his co-author, Alex Thompson, who is like absolutely speechless. Can't even, I mean, he's there on screen, but boy, he doesn't want any part of what's going to happen to Jake Tapper here. Take it away, Megyn.
You covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seem to be running cover for the president.
I don't think
interested.
That's true.
Well, I mean, we'll start with the Lara Trump issue that you referred. Here it is. This happened in 2020.
Joe Biden, as we all know, has worked to overcome a stutter. How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You are
to watch somebody on stage search for
that's so
questions.
amazing.
You're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you
stuttering.
were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel
Lara
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure it was from a place of concern. We all believe that. Lara Trump, thank you so much.
Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now? You covered the...
What a stunning moment. And you'll get the response to that in just a second. But before Tapper wades into this and does his spin control that's been rehearsed and polished and practiced and scripted so that he can sell more books, I just want to point out that the real original sin in what you just saw was not necessarily Jake Tapper, not believing Lara Trump or peddling misinformation about the stutter for Joe Biden. I mean, that's part of the problem. But the real problem is how Jake Tapper and his pals go about their business every day in conducting what they call political journalism in Washington, D.C., especially on cable news. Did you see that? That was not a man who was acting as an interviewer trying to get information about important issues having to do with the campaign or about the governance of our nation from a key player in the Trump campaign back in 2020 so that his viewers could be better educated and informed voters. That's not what Jake Tapper was doing there. What Jake Tapper decided to do was engage in a debate, a fight. He wasn't trying to interview Lara Trump. He was trying to defeat Lara Trump. He was trying to humiliate Lara Trump. He was trying to publicly shame Lara Trump. He was trying to win the day so that Trump was diminished and so that Biden was rewarded. That's not journalism. That's something, but it ain't journalism. And that's the real original sin here. But Jake has an answer. Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now? Do you, Jake?
Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
And what did she say?
I mean, I don't want to disclose the contents of a private conversation, but I thought the conversation went well.
Boy, oh boy, this is super duper convenient, isn't it? I called her months ago. I apologized privately, and I won't divulge what happened in the conversation. Funny this, we make mistakes sometimes on this show, and guess what? I correct the record, and I apologize to you publicly. When newspapers make a mistake, they correct the record publicly. It's never as public as the big blaring headline, right? You ever notice that? Washington Post, big blaring headline on a story that they get wrong. And then the correction is like, oh, by the way, we may have gotten that one wrong. But still, they do it publicly. Where's Jake Tapper's segment? Where's his big segment where he himself replays his interview with Lara Trump and says, yeah, I was wrong here. This is terrible. And I owe a public apology to Lara Trump, but even more so, I owe a public apology to every single voter out there who was misinformed because of me. Every single voter a month before the presidential election in 2020 who shared the same concerns about Joe Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. And you may have thought exactly what Lara Trump was thinking, but because of my behavior, I shamed you. How dare you even think such a thing about Joe Biden? He has a stutter, and you're mocking him, you're shaming him. You're not fit for public discourse. I throw you off my show. What kind of psychological impact does that have on a viewer who also has concerns about Joe Biden and his brain? That wasn't journalism. That was advocacy. That was fighting the good fight for Team Biden. Great stuff with Megyn Kelly. Then he turned to CBS News, Jake Tapper did. He's selling a book, man. And suddenly, by the way, you may notice the smart guy glasses are on. I don't know what's different between doing a podcast with Megyn Kelly and doing a studio hit on CBS News, but here come the smart guy glasses.
Why wasn't this something that was reported about Joe Biden and this cognitive decline? Why wasn't this reported in real time? And obviously, people have criticized you in the book have said, why didn't you report it in real time?
So there were people reporting on what they saw. The conservative media was, to their credit, all over this. Now, they didn't have insider information, but they were just making sense of all the clips and all of the weird moments and off-putting moments.
Thank you, Newsbusters, for that. We're going to watch this one more time because it's just a beauty. Take a look with me.
Why wasn't this something that was reported about Joe Biden and this cognitive decline? Why wasn't this reported in real time? And obviously, people have criticized you in the book have said, why didn't you report it in real time?
So
real fast, just because I love mocking Jake Tapper because he deserves every ounce of it. I make fun of the smart guy glasses, right? Because they look like a prop. And people are like, well, he needs them because when he's on set in studio, he needs his reading glasses so he can see his notes, right, Larry? Take a look at the table in front of him. There's no notes. He doesn't have any paper. He's got to read the mug for CBS Evening News. No, they're a prop. They're a prop because he thinks it makes him look smarter. Me, I bounce back and forth with glasses too, but that's because I'm lazy. In the exact same day, he wasn't wearing glasses with Megyn Kelly. All right, but that said, take a listen because this is important, what he reveals here.
So there were people reporting on what they saw. The conservative media was, to their credit, all over this. Now, they didn't have insider information.
Okay, so he refers to conservative media, which I find fascinating. I would love for him to expand on that. Who exactly is conservative media? I'm curious. What makes one type of media conservative and the other type of media not conservative or liberal for that matter? And by the way, Jake, where do you fit in the equation? Are you conservative media? And if not, does that mean you're liberal media? Or are you the one media on the planet that doesn't have a political perspective? I'm sure that would be his answer. But yeah, it was conservative media. But then he caveats it with, wow, but they didn't have insider information. Guess what, Jake? Right of center media, conservative media, independent media, whatever you want to call it, we told the truth and got this story right because we didn't have insider information, because we didn't have a pipeline to this White House, because we didn't have pals who were picking up the phone and saying, oh, he's fine, he's sharp as a tack. You don't want to embarrass yourself by saying that Biden's not good, because he is, and then you'll look bad and you won't get invited to the party. That's why we got this story right, numbskull, because we didn't have inside information. He like tries like, wow, they were just observing clips, but they didn't actually have real information like me. Well, all of his inside information, all his inside sources, they didn't say a damn thing to him until after the election. Or if they did say anything to him, it was sharpest attack, better than ever, behind closed doors. He's just a whirlwind. I can't keep up with him. So spare me the caveat. Conservative media got it right, but, they didn't have inside information. That's right. What were they doing?
But they were just making sense of all the clips and all of the weird moments. And
that we were using our brains. We were using our eyes. We were seeing what you were seeing, but we didn't have any preconceived barrier to coming up with the obvious conclusion that Biden had, say it with me, mashed potato for brains. And I would love for that to be the follow-up question. Well, hold on. Jake, you had inside sources, which conservative media didn't have, but you also had eyes, you had ears, you have a brain, you saw the same clips. So why is it conservative media reached the correct conclusion and you and the rest of us didn't? Why? But that question was never asked, because they don't want to face the reality of that answer. But at least he admitted that conservative media got it right. How about an apology? How about an apology from the White House, who said that we were engaging in cheap fakes? How about an apology from Brian Stelter on your network, CNN? How about an apology on this dude's network, CBS, where they accused us of using cheap fakes and lies and propaganda? By the way, if conservative media got that right, I have another follow-up for you, Jake. They also got the Hunter Biden laptop story right, didn't they? They sure did. They also got the Russian collusion story right, didn't they? They sure did. They also got the COVID vaccine story right, didn't they? They also got COVID treatment story right, didn't they? They also had the Wuhan lab story right, didn't they? Maybe we should stop calling them conservative media, Jake. Maybe we should start calling them accurate media. Maybe that would be a good idea. It's conservative media. You don't want to go over there. All right, swinging over to CNN, Alex Thompson, the co-author of this book from Axios, finally got to put in a few words because Jake didn't show up for this appearance. And he revealed something remarkable. This, of course, is on CNN, where it seems as though they have devoted about 80% of their programming to promote their pal Jake Tapper's book. I wonder if CNN itself gets some kind of cut in all of this, because it's pretty much 24/7 Jake Tapper book all day long. But here was the panel, and listen to what Alex Thompson, co-author of this book with Jake, reveals.
And Alex, the fact of the fake town hall is not actually the worst part of the story that you report in the book.
Yes, other campaigns have used fake town halls. Now, I would say those town halls usually are in addition to real town halls. Joe Biden was doing neither. This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall, and they determined that it was not usable. Now, some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts in a pithy or even semi-normal way. Some people just said like the lighting was bad. That was sort of the 2 points of view. But the point is, it shows how like what the campaign status was in the spring of 2024 when they were trying to deal with a candidate that wasn't a decline.
Wait, yeah. Someone told you the lighting was bad?
That's one of the excuses.
You're saying that they spent millions of dollars to stage a town hall? Well, we didn't get the lighting right.
That was one of the excuses.
I mean, unbelievable. And this comes back to the question of how many people were aware of things like that but said nothing. And
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit, and also who was really running the White House, which is the question we've been asking for quite some time too. We have some theories, and the book sort of shines a light on some of those theories as being pretty close to the truth. But did you catch that? I love Jennings jumping in there, because this is Alex Thompson. He just wrote this book about, remember, he got the award at the White House Correspondents' Dinner saying, oh, we missed the story. We got this story wrong. Who's we? We didn't, not over here. But then he's still falling into the trap. Okay. They paid for and produced a fake town hall, right? Where everyone in the town hall was on salary or invited by and had their questions written and scripted by the campaign. And they did this so they could record it and then use it for a commercial to make it look like he was really engaged in a town hall when it wasn't. It was a Potemkin village. The entire thing was created. It was a made-for-television infomercial. And they couldn't use it. That's how bad it was. They spent millions, as Jenny just said. And as Thompson is reporting, he said, well, and some of my sources say it was because Joe Biden was so incoherent and so bad that they couldn't use any of it. But then there are other sources who said the lighting was bad. And Jen's like, wait, and you're giving both of them equal weight? You're telling me that you actually buy that? You believe these people who say we didn't use it because the lighting was bad? What the hell? How do you hire professional people? For God's sake, I can do lighting here. You're hiring a lighting designer. You literally get a production company to do this for you. And now, the lighting was bad. Nobody believes that except Alex Thompson, who is the same guy who said, we got the story wrong. Gee, I wonder why, if you're actually buying that bullshit about bad lighting. All right. Thompson had one more appearance yesterday, and that was on NewsNation with Leland Vittert. And boy, this is the most insightful observation from the entire book, I think, about the media.
But when you were reporting this, did people in his inner circle, did those that you talked to acknowledge that the media, were they surprised by how complicit the media was?
It was interesting. I had one conversation with someone. This was after the election while we were reporting this book. This person said, listen, yes, we deserve blame for X, Y, Z. We were hiding him. This person also sort of got in my face and they said, listen, the media deserves some blame too. Like, we were sort of amazed at some of the stuff we were able to spin
and get away with
on. They in some ways,
it's like the bank robber complaining that the safe wasn't locked or something.
They're just like, you guys should not have believed us so easily. And I thought that was like a really interesting, but I also think that's true. I think the media, in a lot of ways, just was not skeptical enough and did not remember the lesson that they do it to different degrees, but every White House lies.
Oh, and I love how they end that with every White House lies. Not like this, pal. Not like this. This is the mother of all lies, because it's not just the lie, it's what the lie is about. This isn't about JFK hiding some, floozy in the closet so he can have a little dalliance. It's not about Bill Clinton get a little hoozy off the Oval Office. And it's not about the crowd size of the inauguration for Trump 1.0. No. This is about whether the president of the United States had a brain that was functioning. But I do love that. I mean, he's laughing about it, which is despicable. This is your profession, pal. These are your valued colleagues that you just admonished by saying we missed the story. Yeah, they missed the story, all right. And the White House was laughing at them. His source after the election says, we lied, but you guys let us get away with it. I can't believe what you guys let us get away with. During the Megyn Kelly interview, Jake Tapper noted that the Biden White House didn't like him, said they hate me. They hate me. So it's not like I had a good relationship with them. I only had one interview with Biden. Hunter Biden and other people inside the Biden White House are pushing back on this book at a Substack. This Substack is called Breaker Media. And on Breaker Media, listen to this really interesting story about Jake Tapper, our pal Jake, the best journalist in town. The actual original sin began in May 2015 with Beau Biden at Walter Reed National Medical Center in Bethesda, right? Maryland, and the family rallying around during the final days of his life. Tapper called Hunter repeatedly on his cell phone. This is May 2015 when Joe Biden was vice president. And his son Beau is dying. According to 3 people familiar with the situation, those calls went unanswered, but then Hunter received a call from a blocked number, so he picked it up. It was Tapper, who allegedly asked Hunter to call him when Bo died. "Go F yourself, Jake," is what those who were present at the time recall Hunter telling Tapper. When Puck's Dylan Byers reported on the situation last week, he included a statement from Tapper, who called the account's patently false lie. "At no point in my life have I ever called Hunter Biden. I have never even had his phone number, and I would never have contacted a person immediately during such a challenging and personal time." That's a statement Tapper repeated to Breaker Media. When we reached Hunter, he told us, quote, "It would be impossible to forget or misremember something that upsetting and out of line during one of the toughest moments of my life. It happened. I was furious, and I told him so the next time I saw him, which was at the Super Bowl. At that game, Tapper approached Hunter to shake his hand, but Hunter responded that he was still so enraged about what had happened at Walter Reed that he would knock him out if they were not in a public setting." You got to watch Hunter, man. He's like in a crack rage sometimes. We're told Tapper would later demand an apology from Biden for his son's behavior. A spokesperson for Tapper doubled down. "The idea that Jake would do something so heartless and yet the Bidens would subsequently offer him multiple sit-down interviews as well as agree to him moderating the debate with anyone hearing about it until now completely defies logic." Okay, so who do you believe in all of this, right? Well, just look at the behavior of the people involved here and you tell me if it fits their profile. Does the description of Hunter and his behavior toward Jake fit Hunter's profile based on what you know? 100%. Does Jake Tapper's behavior fit his profile and his ego and his narcissism? Well, let's read on. It's rare for the 2 protagonists of a story to disagree so profoundly, so we dug into the details. We found, for example, that Tapper did, in fact, cover those drug allegations. According to 2 other people who spoke with Hunter directly after the Walter Reed incident, Tapper did call. It was obviously transparent niceties and then right to business, as if one thing Hunter is thinking about as Bo is dying is to let me give Jake Tapper an exclusive. He was furious about it. It also defies logic that the campaign, rather than CNN, would get to choose who moderated a debate, and we can only find one instance where Tapper interviewed Biden when he was president. Right, not multiple sit-downs. Those in the Biden world note that Tapper had long been frustrated with the Bidens over a lack of access. Just before Biden's 2024 State of the Union address, a number of network anchors were invited to the White House for an off-the-record briefing from the president. As the speech was to be centered around the economy, CNN's Aaron Burnett was picked over Tapper. According to 2 people familiar with the matter, Tapper had a meltdown, calling numerous people in the White House to vent his anger at the decision. He was raging, "I'm Jake Tapper, and this is my network," according to a person on the receiving end of one of those Tapper calls. So does Tapper's behavior here, as reported, fit with what you know about Jake Tapper? 100%. 100%. And you ask anyone working in Washington, D.C., anybody in the media, this is the Jake Tapper who slips into your DMs, direct messages on Twitter or on X, and starts screaming at you via text about something that you may have said about him. I promise you, this is vintage Jake Tapper. Vintage Jake Tapper. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, "Larry, why are you spending so much time on Jake Tapper? You're only helping his book sales. You're only feeding this thing with facts." Well, I'll tell you why. Because there are a couple of tidbits in this book that are worth noting and building on the notion that we were lied to as a country. And we should focus on that because it's a scandal. But there's one other reason. You're right. Me talking about this helps sell Jake Tapper's book. But you know what else it does? It helps sell my book. Because the American people know we were lied to. And so, of course, you have a question. You have a question for yourself. Do you want to hear one of the liars tell you all about the lies? Or do you want to hear me tell you about the shameless liars? Suddenly, my book is having a resurgence because of Jake Tapper and all the attention on this issue. And in fact, yesterday, this is a screenshot from the rankings in the politics and elections category on Amazon. And for a little while, we actually overtook Jake Tapper's book. So, of course, we're going to spend a little more time on it. Also, it's kind of newsworthy. And also, it gives us a chance to remind you that Jake Tapper is a horrible human being.